And we are live. PlaymakerTV episode 7. We are gonna scout a Scot. And as usual, I have Jesper with me, and I'm Mia. And we actually got help to decide what player we were going to talk about this episode. Very happy to have that response, and we promise you all of you that did vote that we are gonna do the other players too before the season ends. Jesper, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's very cold now in Sweden in general, and in Gothenburg, -9 degrees Celsius today. So I'm trying to get used to the cold. I've lived in Gothenburg for 4 years, and I think we've had like 4 weeks in total with snow since I moved here. So we'll see how long this lasts. But it's cold. And then I'm also super glad about that many votes we got, and I agree. Let's do them all.
Yeah, we're not gonna tease about them. We're gonna do them. We promise. But this is the thing. Also, we need to stick with the weather question here at the moment, because I mean, when I woke up this morning, it was -15 degrees Celsius, and then I saw people over in the UK whining about the fact that it was like 0 degrees and one minus. I get that it's very windy over that island, but it was really cold this morning and no fun at all. I can assure you. But it doesn't rain, and we're happy about that. So let's jump into Erin Cuthbert, because that's who we are going to talk about. And this is a very interesting player in so many ways, because she can play so many different positions and roles, and she has done for Chelsea over the years as well. But right now she is playing as a central midfielder. So this is actually interesting to talk about, and it's going to show her different positions and roles when we look at her numbers and stats now, right?
It's definitely got to do. It's gonna show how wide she's, like how she can be used in so many roles, and how good she is in so many different statistic parameters. She's very all round, and she's that player I think all coaches would like to have on their team, because they're so flexible, and they can also change not only the season, they can change the game as well by being moved into different positions. So very exciting player, and it's been really fun analyzing her closely, using data and checking them on the videos.
And we missed her a lot during the Euros this summer in England, because Scotland did not play in the Euros. She's a Scottish national team player, and she plays for Chelsea FC in the Women's Super League. I'm quite interested also to know about the fact that she is playing in Chelsea, who is in the top of the league. So do you think that like these numbers, can they like be affected from the fact that she plays in a very good team?
I mean, some of them could be like, if you have better teammates, it's easier to make a great carry if you get a great pass, of course. But still, like she's if we take the defensive stats, for example, all of them are adjusted for possession. So in that case, it would look worse if it wouldn't adjust. So now when we're adjusting, since Chelsea is a team that is dominating their games, it makes it even better. And then, of course, if we're just talking to Erin, like if we're not talking to the stats, like she's there's a lot of competition to get a starting position in Chelsea, and she managed to get that. So I think that's enough to tell that she's a great player.
And Chelsea is playing in the Champions League tonight, and they will play against Real Madrid in Madrid. And the thing is with Chelsea is that we have to mention this, because they are the only team that are yet to concede in this season's Champions League. And I don't know if I'm right, but I do think that Erin Cuthbert plays a big part in the fact that they don't concede goals. But let's jump right into it.
Yes, let's jump right into it. So you will, those of you that watched the Fridolina Rolfö episode, you will recognize some of the visuals, and there are some new that I've made since, or just added to this presentation. And if you haven't watched that episode, I highly recommend you to watch it after this. So here we have the so-called the normal or like the just basic spider that we have on our platform and that we have on our scout reports. And then if you want to look more closely into the stats, which you should do in case you're scouting the player, you can do so. But if we're looking at the spiders here, we have at the top, we have the World Cup qualification for Europe. For the World Cup next year in New Zealand and Australia. And she's compared then with all the players in that World Cup qualification in Europe. So she's compared to the players in Spain and Sweden, even though they didn't play the same group, but she's not compared to Brazilian players or the Japanese national team, for example. And then we have Women's Super League this year down to the left, and to the right we have Champions League last year, when she played as a fullback or wingback. And as you can see, all the spiders really are almost like above average in everything. Her spider from the World Cup is a perfect spider. We should, though, have in mind that there's teams on very different levels in a World Cup qualification. So that, of course, affects it. But she's been really good for the national team as well.
We must say this because every time we talk about the more red it is, the better.
Yeah, the more red it is, the better. So the perfect spider is not completely red. There will be a gray line here, like a gray edge, but almost completely red circle. And yeah, the worst possible spider is completely black, is with a red dot. Yeah, I just want to add that, like, it's maybe not, if you're very close to the middle in some statistic in this spider, it doesn't mean that you're bad at it necessarily. It just means that you're not doing that action that much in your team as well. So you have to dig closer to notice if the player is performing bad or if it's just not doing that in their role.
Exactly. And we're also going to say that we know that this is a bit hard to read on the screen. And this is the spider graphic that we are going to post tomorrow along with the episode again. But the next graph that Jesper is going to show, I have posted on Twitter. So you can follow there.
Yes. So the next one, let's go to it. It's a detailed spider. It's the position spider or the position cluster spider. And what is important to know here is that you will notice when you check the picture that it's not the same stats at the same position at all of them. So I think we're going to go through them. And the reason for that is that she's played in different roles in these 3 tournaments. So if we start at the top with Scotland and down to the left with Chelsea and Women's Super League, she's been playing as a central midfielder in both of them, but she's played a little bit different. So in Scotland, she's been allowed in their 4-3-3 system to be a little bit more offensive and take more of offensive responsibility, considering in Chelsea where she's playing more as a number 6. And if we go to the Champions League last year, as I mentioned, she played more of a fullback. But we can see similar patterns. So she's compared to other players. In the Scotland case, she's compared to other players that are playing more offensive position centre mid, so more of number 8s and number 10s. And in the Women's Super League spider, she's compared with other players playing as a number 6 or more of a defensive number 8. And
she's good at taking the ball from other players, opponent players. You can see that.
Yeah, you can see that in all the spiders, that she's very dominant in recovering balls. Also in offense on the offensive half when it comes to pressure on the opponent or just recovering after losing it. You could also see that from when she's playing more offensively as a wing back or in Scotland as a central midfielder, she's very dominant in the crosses, whereas she's still very good at it compared to other central midfielders in Chelsea this year. But when we go closer into the numbers, you will see that she's not doing that as much since she's playing lower initially in the possession phase. Yes, so I think we will go closer into these numbers by starting with the heat maps. So when we're looking at these heat maps that I didn't have in the last plot, so I added them here. We have a defensive action heat map to the right, and we have a offensive or possession-based heat map to the left. And this is like, if we look at last year when she played in the Champions League, as I said, she played as a fullback. You can see that in the heat map that she has defensive action a little bit further down, which is since they, you're usually lower in defense, but she has a very high position as a wing back, like mostly only on the offensive half. And when you look at in Scotland, she played more of a central midfielder. But when it comes to the defense, she's still all over the pitch. But you can see that has a higher area or higher number of actions to the right in defense, and that's, I think, is that she's initially, when they're defending in formation, she's to the right in their 4-3-3 system. Okay, and then if we move on to this year, we have the same heat maps, but it's just that we have the Women's Super League here, and then we still have Scotland's national team in the World Cup. And you can see that now in Chelsea, when she's playing as number 6, the spiders, or no, the heat maps looks more of the same. But she's defending all over the pitch, and she has possession all over the pitch as well.
She's just everywhere. We can say that, because you can see that when she plays as well. Although we were a bit like at first, before we started to record, when we looked at her heat map in defense, it's quite interesting to see that it looks like she is more to the left.
Yeah, she has like a L-shaped defensive heat map, and I think we talked about, since they're attacking a lot on the left, she has the freedom to move over there, and then maybe when they lose the ball in attack, she's part of like reconquering the ball, and then she wins the ball to the left as well. But when they're like defending more deeply, she's acting more in the number 6 position, so to say.
Yeah.
If we go to the next one, we will go through a lot of pitch plots here, and they're a little bit more of the same. But you can see that in Scotland, when she's defined more as an attacking midfield, you can see that the center of the passes are more on the offensive half, and she's also allowed to move more freely into the corridors and do crosses. While as we come to Chelsea in Women's Super League, we can see that the center is more around the center of the pitch, or even like you have almost 2 clusters. You have one number 6 cluster in the initial build-up phase, but you can see also that she is mostly maybe moving to the right, but she's still moving out to the edges of the pitch. But she's not really doing the crosses. Instead, she's doing like deeper passes towards the end of the final third's corridors, and Guro Reiten or Ritin Karanrid or Roy James or whoever it could be. And in Champions League last year, she was acting more as a fullback.
That's really clear.
Yeah, that's really clear.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at the carries, it's a bit more of the same. We don't need to go too deeply into that. You can see that she really played as a fullback as well.
Yes.
And when we're looking at progressive actions, it's a little bit more of the same. You can see that maybe that they were more 50-50 blue and yellow. So like she did a lot of high XT actions when it comes to carries when she was acting as a fullback than she's doing as a central midfielder. But that's really not that surprising, because usually when you play as a fullback, you're playing in the corridors. There's more of empty space in the corridors, especially if you're playing in a team like Chelsea. So she has the opportunity to run more with the ball, considering when she's playing more in tight spaces as a central midfielder, and are more part of moving the ball with passes out of these highly dense areas.
Yeah, and on the, because this is progressive actions also, so it's here you can see it's like coming from a lot of them in the Women's Super League comes from the number 6 position, just in front of the back line. So
yeah. And if we look at the crosses, we have to also remember, of course, that the Women's Super League is just halfway through and the national team is over. But still, I should have remembered. But I think in the World Cup qualification, I think they played like 10 or 12 games in total, since they played a group stage and then they played 2 qualification games. They won the first and then they lost to Ireland in the second round. But still, like, she did a lot of crosses when she played in the national team, since she had this higher position in possession, and especially as a fullback. And you can also see that her cross percentage is really good. They're mostly green arrows in the Champions League last year. So she's a very good player when it comes to passing the ball or crossing the ball, doing air passes as well. So, yeah.
I think that Real Madrid's goalkeeper, Misa, felt that the last time they played.
Yeah.
because that cross she delivered, it went straight into goal. I'm sure she said it was it was a shot, but it really put the keeper in a weird spot there. So
yeah.
I mean, no wonder Erin Cuthbert is a very clinical finisher.
Yeah.
Her goal. I should remember what team it was against, but she just banged a goal into the back of the net, and that was the goal of the month in Barclays Women's Super League this month.
Yeah. We will come to the finishes more soon as well, so it's a good teaser. When we talk about the key passes, she hasn't done as much this year as well. It's a very short key pass in, I think, higher up, and that's also, like, since you're playing more further down as a number 6, you're usually not, like, number 6 are usually not doing as many key passes, although they could be really good passers. But that's basically due to their initial position. So it's good to have with you when you're analyzing this. But when she played as a fullback, she had all these good crosses, as we just saw, and a lot of them led to goals or shots. And in Scotland, it was more from free position in the center. So a little bit more of the same. When we look at the defensive or the dual maps here, it's a bit like the defensive heat maps that you could see before, that they were all over the edge as a fullback. And if you look at in the World Cup qualification compared to the Women's Super League this year, it's all good numbers that we'll see more closely later, and that she's acting all over the pitch. And you shouldn't really necessarily look at how many green and red dots it is, since it's due to, like, how many games you played, but you can really look at, like, in which areas she's defending here as well. Progressive reception. So this is like when you positive XT received, that's really when you have received a progressive pass. You can see in Scotland, like, it's more of the same as we talked about. You can see in Scotland that she's receiving passes higher up in the pitch. She's receiving mostly passes from the center out in the corridors in Champions League last year, and she's receiving passes from Magdalena Eriksson, Millie Bright, and other defenders, mostly in number 6 position. And then she has some passes when they come from the corridors into the center when they're attacking and owing the ball on the offensive half. shot maps. You talked about the shots, and
Yeah, I must say this. It was at Stamford Bridge when they played Tottenham, of course.
Oh yeah,
My mind just blank. But when you look at that goal, your mind actually goes blank, because that like hit is so clean. I must say, just it's a great goal. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you go watch it anywhere on internet.
Yes, definitely. And I think this is something interesting as well. Like Erin Cuthbert is not, as we know, the player that or she's not playing that. She's not a forward, so she's not shooting that much. That's not really the biggest part of her role, but in any of these positions. But you can still see that she is in 3 tournaments here. She's overperforming her expected goals. And if we would look into further tournaments that she's played, it's more of the same. So I think it's still like a fact that Erin Cuthbert is a good finisher. Even though she's playing further down, she's a good finisher, and she takes care of her chances. So if she would be a striker, she would. You would see.
I'm sure she
more.
could play in that position as well. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, me too.
Just put her anywhere on the pitch and she will do the job. And because she works very hard.
Yeah. Pass networks. One of my favorites, and I think we could go through the explanation again for new viewers and also as a reminder. So these are average pass networks for the entire season. So games could have been different, but like if you do an average pass network for the team positions when they play, you receive this, at least according to my program and my calculations. And if the dots are players, and the darker they are, the higher the XT, the expected threat the players generate, and that could be both from carries and passes. So, for example, if you have a player that is pretty dark, but there are no links, they're probably or they are performing most of their expected threat through carries and not passes. And the arrows are links, connections in between players. And the thicker the arrow, the more passes there are in that link. And the brighter the color or the lower expected threat the links are on average. So you can see here in Scotland, where she has the highest, or not the highest, but where she has a higher initial position, as we talked about, considering Chelsea in this year. She also has like a higher expected threat value per 90, but I think that's due to her position and due to the fact that Scotland, even though they didn't qualify for the World Cup, they were more dominant in there than Chelsea are in the league, although Chelsea are very good. And if you look at Chelsea this year, you can see that she plays as one of the number sixes. Like, I would argue Chelsea are playing mostly with 2 number 6 and 1 more number 10, and Erin is one of them. You can see that she don't maybe have necessarily like that many high XT connections with other players, but that's really a lot due to her role and what the previous visuals that we've shown. But you can see that she receives a lot of ball and owes a lot of ball when you look at the defenders' connections. And if you look to the pass network of Champions League last year, you can see that she is very dark. She's generating a lot of expected threat, and she also have these links all over to the other side of the pitch to the other winger and also into the box. Did I make it pretty understandable, Mia?
Yes, you sure did. And I think this is also interesting if you watch how Chelsea played this season compared to the Champions League last season. Obviously, it's not a league, but I mean, I think they play, like, if you watch this, it looks more narrow up front.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah. And now we're not scouting Magdalena Eriksson, but I still think that you can see from both of these that, as we talked before the episode, that she's key in build-up phase for Chelsea.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
she
we are
has all-
Swedish people, so we are allowed to mention one Swede
Yeah, we
per
definitely
game.
are. We definitely
per
are.
episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we move on. So we talked a bit about these player roles that Playmaker AI are working with in the last episode, and we talked about Fridolina Rolfö.
I can remember what for she was.
Yeah,
Now,
which for?
Yeah, she was the star, the classic winger, the deep threat, and the creator. And this is like, I mean, obviously, it's quite interesting because Erin Cuthbert is sort of played the same position. She obviously did not have the same role as Fridolina has in Barcelona, but she played the same position last season for Chelsea, while she this season is playing another position. So you can obviously see that. But you need to explain now, Jesper, because let's start with last season.
Yeah, I think
right.
Yeah, I think last season is best. So here I took Women's Super League last year and this year. I haven't shown Women's Super League. I showed Champions League, but I haven't shown Women's Super League before. But I thought it's good to have an explanation where it is the same league that she's playing in and similar opponents. And one thing that we can consider here is that she played as a fullback or wing back a lot last year. So she was acting a lot in the corridors, as we've seen on the previous pitch plots and heat maps. And when you're playing in the corridor, you're matching mostly with the player roles that are acting in the corridor. So the progressor is progressive or a wing back or fullback. It goes like mostly. So the player roles, they are not like matching definitely with one certain position, but all player roles have some position that they are like likeliest to match with. But they are like they are not connected with a certain position necessarily, but there's still like some positions that they are mostly related with. And progressor is a fullback or wingback avatar mostly, and you can see that Erin Cuthbert is like mostly matching to that one. Creator, that's more of a wide playmaker, so someone that is acting as a playmaker but playing as offensive winger or inner forward. So that would be someone playing in a 4-3-3 system or a very offensive fullback or wingback. So you can see that she's kind of a hybrid. And an artist is it's quite interesting that she matches with that last year, because an artist is mostly like an attack, like a forward that drops a little bit and is very active in the build-up phase when it comes to dribbles and carries and also like expected assist, key passes, but not maybe scoring the most goal. But an artist could be both a forward, inner forward, or offensive winger. And since she was so offensive and had like great XT carries and dribbles numbers, as we soon will see, she matches with that. And the star is a star winger position, so that is an inner forward or a winger, offensive winger that's scoring a lot of goals or like generating a lot of expected goals, as well as they are generating expected assist and expected threat. So it's like really a dual threat winger. Johanna Rytting-Kaneryd in Häcken in Allsvenskan, for example. And so that's her like fourth match in this player role spider. But the reason she's matching a bit with that is her expected threat carries number and her key passes and so on.
But then this season it looks very different.
Yes, in this season it looks very different, which is very interesting, and that's because she's playing as a number 6 now. And although if you would look closely in the numbers, you could see that she was very good in duels, which we will see soon. But like when it comes to player role, that she didn't define as these roles that she do this year, and that's because now she's moving mostly in the central corridor. in the central corridors, like the inner corridor and the central corridor of the pitch. And here you have the more obvious match, or we can take the worker and the false nine. So the worker and the false nine, that are more like offensive central midfield player roles, mostly. It could also be someone playing a forward. But the reason she's matching a bit with that is that she has this, that she's defending very high up on the pitch as well, sometimes when she's recovering the ball when Chelsea has lost it, and that those player roles are also player roles that are very involved in recovering the ball and acting in pressure and so on, or being very good in the pressing game.
But then the other two profiles here, it's Regista and Anchor. They are very prominent.
Yes, and they are almost the same number. And I will go into like what we call someone that is just 50-50 of these two. But she's a little bit more the anchor. That's why they chose the anchor in the top. But the anchor is number 6 that is mostly defined by recovering the ball, being very good in the defensive game, in the duel game. It could also be in the pressive game, but acting as a number 6. And the regista is more of a deep playmaker, so to say. So a number 6 that is acting as a playmaker and is very good in moving the ball higher up in the pitch and being like a motor in generating the attacks and like generating the possession and making it more dangerous, moving it up to players in a high position. And what we call someone that is like, it's unlikely that someone is this good, and also like it's pretty rare that someone is like equally good at both. Like sometimes you have more of a 70-30 divide, or that you have someone that is very like mostly matching one of them. But Erin Cuthbert is what we call a hybrid anchor, so she can do both of them, and that's very good. So then you have a player that can both reconquer the ball and then be a very good motor, and someone that can be involved in the startup of very successful attacks, moving the ball to the final third and so on.
I think we already established the fact that she is all over the pitch. She is hardworking, very good in duels, and can play probably almost anywhere, I would say.
So let's look more into the stats. So here we have more of Women's Super League last year in the top here, and Women's Super League last year in the bottom. And she's compared with her position cluster. So she's compared with different places since she played fullback and now centre mid. So that's something to keep in mind. But what I want to show here is that you can see that some of her stats are the same. Like she's positioned the same in the cluster. So you can see that even though she's acting in a new role and in a new position, you can see that her qualities have remained kind of. And if there's a difference, I will kind of like tell you my explanation why there is. So in the inception per 90, you can see that she has like she's distributed in the middle, so or just above the 50% percentile. So she's very good in breaking passes and recovering passes from the opponent, or she's good at it, and it's like quite in the same amount, and these numbers are adjusted for possession. If we look at won balls on offensive half per 90, you can see that she's, if we adjust for possession, she's the best in her position cluster both years. So when it comes to the pressing game and recovering the ball when you lose it in an attack on the offensive pitch, there's no one better in the league, perhaps.
And maybe this is why Emma Hayes decided to play her as a 6 this season, because of this was what she was very good at last season.
Yeah.
And then you can use that in the number 6 position.
I definitely think so. Yeah, definitely. If we look at crosses per 90, we can see a drop. Or like if you look at it's maybe hard to see here, but if you look more closely, you can see that there's still like 60-70% of the central mids are behind her in crosses, and then some are above. And if you would look at number 6s, as you saw in the spider, she's actually like top 20% or something. But here are all the center mids, which I did. So a lot of them that are above her are center mids that have a higher initial position. But when you look at the fullbacks last year, there was only, I think it is Guro Reiten that is above her, or it is. Otherwise, like she's number 2. So 2 Chelsea players.
Not Ona Batye.
No, I don't want to start a debate now. She's good.
No, we're not going to do that. I was just joking.
Yeah, but yeah, Guro Reiten was a monster last year. Her numbers, so she's still that good. But yeah, if we look at the expected threat passes, you can see that she also has like dropped a bit, but that's the difference in her role, really. So she's compared to all the center mids up here, and then also like expected threat is a measure that is not like constantly growing on the pitch. So it's more like an exponential increase, since like statistically in possession, if you're moving the ball a long distance, but it's on your own half, or like in the first third and the central third, you're not increasing the threat so much. Like you're not the possession is not so much more dangerous. But in the final third, expected threat is increasing a lot, since like if you're owning the ball in the final third, the probability of scoring later in the possession chain is highly increased if you look at historical games. And when she's playing as a number 6 compared to other central midfielders, she's not acting as much in the final third as we've seen before. And that's why her expected threat number is decreasing. And that's not saying she's a worse passer in any sense this year. It's more of like her position and role has changed.
Yeah. And how teams use their number 6s as well, obviously.
Yeah, and that's one reason when you use data scouting that it's very important to look at a player. If you have that data, it could be harder with a 17-year-old, of course, but like to look at several seasons when they played in different teams and different tournaments, just to get a deeper understanding of the player.
Yeah.
And of course, use video as a complement. If you look at expected threat carries, you can see that she was one of the absolute best last year among fullbacks. And this year, I should have done the just balancing midfielders here, but this year, like because most of these are more offensive in their initial position, like she's still really good for being a number 6 when it comes to carrying the ball. Really good. And dribbles per 90, I said that she was maybe, these are successful dribbles. It says dribbles per 90, these successful dribbles, and her dribble percentage was also one of the highest. So, which is very impressive considering like how many dribbles she's doing. So she's like technically, superb player.
We can say it again. This is a very all-round player, but not an average all-round player. She is a very good all-round player, and I mean that red dot from last season. That is a very impressive one.
It's a very impressive one. Yeah. Very impressive one. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we go back to challenges, you can see that when it comes to all won challenges, adjusted for possession, she was number 2 among fullbacks last year, and this year she's number 1 among all central midfielders. So when it comes to conquering the ball, recovering possession, I would argue there's no one better in the Women's Super League. She's one of the best in the world.
Gonna watch her very close tonight when she challenge Real Madrid players.
And talking about best in the world, I think like we will end this with a number 6 comparison that you asked about, Mia.
So yeah, I was just interested because we looked at Erin's numbers and they are so good. Like when you look at the Women's Super Leagues, it's just interesting to know with a small comparison, because obviously we have to take into consideration that they play for different teams in different leagues and with different roles, I would say, even though they play the same position.
Yes. So I think with that in mind, as Mia mentioned, I did the number 6 comparison of the 3 of the best number 6s in the world, or that is playing in Europe. And that is Erin Cuthbert, Lena Oberdorf, and Kira Walsh. And this data is from their league season this year. So they're playing in different leagues, as mentioned. But
so it is Kira Walsh from Barcelona, her
Yes.
games there, right?
Yes.
And Lena Oberdorf, as probably most of you know, plays in German side Wolfsburg.
Yes, and I think it's quite interesting here because it's not how I defined which player role you are, but you could say that but there's still a connection with that the lower 5 KPIs here are more of like anchoring or anchor KPIs, and the 7 here on the offensive half is more of regista KPIs. But when I'm defining the player roles with machine learning, it's a lot more data taken into account. But it's still interesting to see. So you can see here that all of them are like a bit hybrid, or like kind of hybrid, because they still have like an area that is like growing into both parts. And these numbers are adjusted for possession, so it doesn't really matter that much that like Barcelona, for example, are super dominant in possession, since it's adjusted, or it's at least less defining. But then you can see here, I might start debate, but you can see here that maybe
we love the debates.
Yeah, Erin Cuthbert is like the most all-round of these 6s. So you can see that her player roles defined really 50-50, but you can see here that she's like she has an edge towards both of them when it comes to XT carries and crosses. But when it comes to the offensive passing game, Lena Oberdorf has more final third and more gains. But if you a bit, and when you look to expected threat passing, Kira Walsh, and pass percentage and so on, like generally in passing, Kira Walsh is the most dominant. She's also playing in maybe the best team in the world. So, but she's the most dominant. But if you look at the defensive stats, like tackles per 90 adjusted, and one balls offensive half has per one balls on offensive half per 90, she's super dominant. Lena Oberdorf, if you look at the anchoring, her spider, or if you will look at her player roles, she would be more of an anchor than a regista, and Kira Walsh in her role now would be more of a regista than an anchor, although they all have a bit of both. Whereas Erin Cuthbert is the most hybrid. I also think that one thing that is interesting with Lena is that she also has very high numbers when it comes to interception. So sometimes you can say that she's maybe has an even more progressive side when it comes to being placed in the right position and winning ball by breaking passes than the others.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Chelsea fans are very happy that Erin stayed and extended her contract in Chelsea, because there were rumors about her being very wanted by the likes of Barcelona, actually.
But I can understand.
Yeah, because it's like you say, it's very, very interesting that she is so all-round, and all-round can be like, from time to time you can see all-round that sometimes it gets like average on some metrics, but here you have a player that could really perform like all over. That's a good word for it, like all over the pitch and all over across the metrics.
Yeah. So what a player. And I really hope that you like this player report. Please spread it to other friends that you think will like it. And we will come back with a player report of a Manchester United player later in December, right?
Yeah, that we will. And then we are also gonna write an article, scouting report, with using some of these graphs of Erin Cuthbert in the next coming weeks. she sure deserved to be shown off a little bit, I think. Maybe the fact is that you see that she's hardworking, but you probably when you look at her playing Chelsea, you just see the hard work and interception part and ball recovering even more. But I mean, wow, what a spider!
Yeah, what a spider! What a player!
What a spider! What a player! Erin Cuthbert. And with that being said, good luck to Chelsea and Erin in tonight's Champions League game away in Real Madrid. Kickoff time is 9 p.m. CET, and let's hope to see some. I mean, Erin Cuthbert goals or passes or crosses or whatever. But
definitely.
Goodbye, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye.